Ready or Not, the tactical SWAT simulator has just entered some very bad controversy as its console release date is coming up on July 15th, but it's been revealed that Sony and Microsoft are forcing some censorship changes on the game for them to be released on their consoles. But unfortunately, this will also impact the PC version as well, because of course the developers don't want to be maintaining two different builds of the game and also somehow figure out how to get crossplay working correctly and all that. So they've decided that if they're going to be censoring it on console, they're also going to censor it on PC. Now, this is already kicking off on Steam what might become a review bombing, as the negative reviews for the game are suddenly increasing at an exponential rate. And this is very unfortunate, as the hype for the game's console release on July 15th has just been building and building and building since it was announced, and there's a huge content drop for all of the platforms on the very same day, so everyone's just been excited for this. But of course, now we have this controversy showing up. So let's go over what is actually changing. And we'll start with Dismemberment and Gore. So this is interesting. It is staying in the game. However, it's changing in a specific way. So right now there is full Dismemberment and a lot of gore. That's going to stay, interestingly. But what's going to be removed is when you do eliminate one of your hostiles, you currently in the PC version can walk up to them and remove parts. Whereas in the updated version for console, and of course will be updated for PC as well, when they're eliminated, you can't walk up to them and actually remove additional parts. So the initial gore and dismemberment is still there, but as soon as they're eliminated, you cannot do more. And overall, I don't see a huge problem with this specific change here. It can also be modded quite easily on PC to enable this. And then there's also a few cartridges you'll find that have been interrogated. And what they've done here is pull back. So you'll still see stuff, but it will not be nearly the level that it was previously. Then you've got nudity. So in this game, there's not full nudity. However, there's bits you can definitely see. There's a bad guy, for instance, who's wearing a ghillie suit. So he's not nude, but you can see his dingaling, right? So they're taking that away. And I ain't too fussed about that. That's cool. But yeah, there is definitely some civilians who are scantily dressed, and they will now have more clothes than they previously had. And then there's also changes to representation of violence and mistreatment. So this is against a certain set of people, and they're going to be toning this back quite considerably. And then the console version is going to have some exclusive changes that are going to be texture based. This means they can easily just have different textures for the console builds than the PC ones. So they're still the same game, but just different pictures in those texture locations. And they give an example, which is some textures used on one of their missions where you can see some computer monitors. And this has some explicit photos. Now, when you load up the console version in the future and go to this exact same location, what you'll find in those photos on the screen have just the spinning little marks as if they're loading up, and they don't ever load. Whereas on PC, of course, you'll be able to see them. So there is going to be some more explicit stuff on the PC version than on the console one, based on some of the textures they can change. And that leads us now into the conclusion. So this is bad, unfortunately. However, to me, all these changes are not going to affect the gameplay and the enjoyment of it. The story still seems to be just as intense, but they pulled back in a few different areas. The big problem, of course, is that this is affecting the PC release, when it would be very nice if it wasn't. But I can understand why they're not wanting to make two completely different builds of the game and maintain them and try and get console crossplay working, and it would impact overall the amount of content these developers can make, which right now is not that much. We usually get content from them every 3 to 6 months. So we don't want them doing more work that would rather be put into new content. But I think this is definitely a bad thing, unfortunately, and they might well get a review bomb from these changes happen on the PC version. And of course, this is just down to how the console platforms and PC platforms have some underlying differences that change how things are. And Steam, it has rules. There's certain stuff you cannot put into your games and put up on Steam. And on console, there just is more rules. So this is a really bad thing. It's really unfortunate. I'm okay with it, and it's not going to probably destroy my enjoyment of the game, but I can certainly see why people will be very annoyed, and it's kind of being forced onto the PC players, which is definitely not a good thing. But anyway, guys, give me your verdict in the comments below, and I'll catch you next time.